Good evening. I'd like to call the August 12th, 2014 Borough Council of Phoenixville meeting to order. We'll start with a moment of silence, followed by the pledge. Mr. Crack, will you please do a roll call?
Mr. Bowers.
Present.
Mr. Dalton.
Present.
Ms. Dugan.
Here.
Mr. Ichter.
Present.
Mr. Kuznar.
Present.
Ms. Mayo.
Here.
Mr. Prednick. Gotcha. Mr. Kowaleski.
Present.
Mr. Mayor.
Semper Fi.
Manager, Solicitor, Chief here, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving right along with the agenda, we'll go to item 3, consider approval of the July 8th, 2014 minutes. What is council's pleasure?
Make a motion to approve the council minutes of July 8, 2014.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, second by Mr. Dalton. On the motion, any comments to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
I have to abstain since I missed the second part of that meeting.
Thank you. Motion carries 701. Mr. Crack, do we have any presentations tonight?
You do not.
All right. We'll open up the first round of public participation. I'd like to invite any members of the public who wish to participate or comment on tonight's agenda or other items up to the podium. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. And when you do come to the podium, please identify yourself as a borough resident or not, and make sure you sign in.
Sorry, I already signed in. Hi, my name is Matt Garber. I actually live here right on Bridge Street, right on Prospect, actually. And on July 16th, I believe, I had a job interview that I was going to. And I walked out, and I noticed that they had towed all the cars in my lot. Now, I didn't get any kind of notification or notice that this was happening. I lost that job opportunity. And then I was forced to locate my cars, which was not the towing company listed on the tow sign, but it was actually a different company, which was a lot of fun. And then we had to pay to get our cars unimpounded. And then we also had to call in a personal favor to go get our cars. Now, the reason why we didn't get any notice is I'm unemployed. I was currently going for a job interview, and my girlfriend Stephanie works from home. We feel as though there wasn't any kind of sufficient notice to let us know that we needed our cars vacated from there because they were painting the lines, which we would have happily moved our cars to a different lot or moved it to another place to park anywhere. But we are now, we had to pay a hefty fine, and then we were also issued parking tickets. And I would like to see something happen where there was a better notice system. Either, email, texting, a Facebook post you guys could do, Twitter, posting on the website, anything like that that we could follow to avoid anything like this in the future. Any have anything to say?
No, you pretty much covered it.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Garber. Any other any other public participation at this time? Seeing none, we'll close the first round of public participation and move on to appointments and public resolutions. Item A under there is a call for residents interested in being appointed to various boards and commissions. I think one of the positions is going to be filled under item B. I'd just like to make the general statement I've been doing at all council meetings recently. If there are members of the public out there or watching this at home that wish to participate on one of the various boards or commissions at the borough, please contact the borough to get the application submitted so that you can get signed up, and when these opportunities present themselves, can be on the list to fill those roles. There's almost always a need on the various boards and commissions for individuals, so I encourage anybody that wants to participate to please do so. Moving on to item B, consider filling the vacant planning commission seat, which expires March 31, 2016. What is council's pleasure? Mr. Bowers?
I wish to make a motion to nominate Deborah Johnson to fill the vacancy on the Planning Commission seat, which that position would expire March 31st, 2016.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, second by Ms. Mayo. Discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I think we need a roll call on that one. Yeah, let's call a roll call on that, please.
Yes.
Mr. Dalton? No. Ms. Sudi?
Yes.
Mr. Richter?
No.
Mr. Kuzma?
No.
Ms. Mayo?
Yes.
Mr. Ferdinand? That's a no. Mr. Kowalski?
Yes.
You have a tie. Mr. Mayor, are you interested in breaking this tie?
The mayor has two options, either to call a special meeting or to make a vote. I missed the interviews. I saw the interviews tonight. Since there were two candidates, I don't know if council, I'm not aware of council's position. I'd like to hear some discussion. So at this time, I would call for the special meeting.
Okay. So we will have to take that up and maybe in council participation to figure out when that special meeting would be scheduled for, assuming that there can't be any other decisions made by council. Okay.
Mr. Richter?
I just have a general question, Mr. President. Does that mean that the floor will be open up to more candidates or just the two candidates that are in, or excuse me, three candidates that are in the queue at the moment?
This would be on the vote that you took tonight, which is on the one candidate. That's for the mayor to break that tie or to have that special meeting. As I understand it, would be for just this one candidate. But
But if that fails, another motion can come up during that meeting to consider others. Yes.
Okay, so we would have just nominated the other candidate as well now for another vote?
I think it would work this way, assuming that the vote came out the same 4-4, and say the mayor voted that down, then someone else would probably make another motion for someone else until we got to some kind of consensus.
Wouldn't that mean that the mayor would only get to hear from the first candidate? I mean, because you're saying that the mayor would make a decision on the first vote, but that's only the first candidate, so he wouldn't have the opportunity to hear from all of the candidates.
In my experience, when I have seen this, actually I've never seen this related to an appointment to the Planning Commission. But when I've seen it for other things, the presentation of both sides would come first, then the revote happens, and then the mayor breaks a tie. So that's been my experience. I don't think there's anything set in the Borough Code that says you have to do it a certain way. I think all that it is the mayor's discretion for time.
So my question to the solicitor would be, if council determines that there's another candidate that they wanted to vote on tonight, and they had a majority of votes, the other vote would be mute.
Yes.
There would be no need for a special meeting.
Correct.
No. All right, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Richter.
I'll make a motion to nominate Ryan Norris for the Planning Commission seat.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Dalton to appoint Mr. Norris. Mr. Bowers.
There's an unresolved motion on the floor. I'm not understanding how this could go forward.
So as of now, you have a 4-4 tie. The mayor is elected to call a special meeting. Another motion has come up for a separate candidate. Again, I was not particularly thinking through this on the fly. I don't see, although he has made a determination not to vote on the first candidate, the fact that someone raises a second candidate, and if that person prevailed, then the first motion would essentially be moot. So I think a second motion is proper. I can't see a reason why it would not be, provided that there would be public comment allowed for that second motion.
Based upon that, I think we move forward with the motion that's
Yeah.
been on the floor and that's been seconded. And I'll call for discussion on that motion. Seeing no discussion, I'll ask for a roll call vote, given the last vote.
Just as a reminder, I always start with the next person first, and that would be Mr. Dalton.
Yes.
Ms. Dugan.
No.
Mr. Richter.
Yes.
Mr. Kuznar.
Yes.
Ms. Mayo.
No.
Mr. Prednick. Yes. Mr. Bowers.
No.
Mr. Kowalewski.
No.
You still have a tie. And Mr. Mayor?
Again, I will have the special meeting. Let me again speak to the solicitor. Did I hear Councilman Ichter say that there was 3 candidates? And at that time of the special meeting, would all 3 be considered, or
I would suggest there be a presentation again for all 3 people if they want to apply, and then motions will be made on those 3. I think that would be the most logical thing. I don't think there's any particular
No,
method prescribed in the borough code.
yes?
Right.
And if the manager could forward me the resumes of the 3 candidates prior to the special meeting? Thank you.
With council's pleasure, we have done interviews before in the past at the council meetings. Would council be interested in re-interviewing the 2 candidates that we have here tonight so as to not waste their time and their efforts in showing up tonight in order to potentially resolve this issue?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Bowers?
I think it's appropriate that we make a motion to nominate William Davidson, who as well had his application in, but was not present for the interview.
We have a motion and a second on the floor right now. I don't disagree with
What we're effectively doing is tabling this. This is not,
That's what you're doing.
that was not, not the intent. We were intending to make an appointment to the Planning Commission, which has a vacancy. We have qualified candidates in front of us. We've been announcing, each council meeting begins with a petition to have interested candidates submit their applications.
I concur. That's why I'm trying to get that's why I suggested.
This isn't about being dissatisfied that we only have 3. We have 3 candidates. Make a vote.
On the motion that's on the floor, comment, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Bowers that we have qualified candidates, and I feel it's council who should appoint the member to the Planning Commission. If you're asking me as mayor to break a tie between all, 3 very qualified people, I need the opportunity to review the resumes, to review the Planning Commission, and put my head together in on it. I don't want to make the decision for council. I would prefer council at some point reaches their own majority. I mean, that's my intention for the special meeting, so I am fair to all the candidates.
Ms. Dugan?
Okay, the one thing I just want to mention here is these people have already interviewed. The majority of us have actually seen the interviews now for the 2 people coming, so maybe we only interview the last candidate, because to make them go and interview all over again with the same exact 8 people here, plus the mayor this time, it's kind of like maybe, that's kind of a waste of their time, it feels like. But that's just my thought on it.
Any other comment on the motion on the floor right now, which would be to re-interview the two candidates now? Oop. Any other discussion on the motion on the floor, which would be to re-interview the two candidates now? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-3. Seeing that we have the two candidates here, I will flip-flop just for the purposes of fairness, I guess, and I'll ask Mr. Norris to come back up and give the mayor and the rest of council the benefit of your comments earlier, please.
Hello, everyone. Again, hello, Mayor. Again, I'll do my introduction first, I guess, or did you want to go right to questions? All right. My name's Ryan. I've been here about 3 to 4 years in town. Grew up in Pottstown, driven through here my whole life. I really like this town. It's going forward. Didn't mean that meeting to get so elongated. Sorry for the tie. I really love the future of this town, and I think I would love to be a member of the planning committee to help it go the right way, which is always increasing for the better, for us all, for the workers, for the residents, for the businesses. I have volunteered for the chamber, for the borough, and I am currently the general manager of the Phoenix Bar. I know sales, the charts, how it goes up and down, and when the people are out, and what the customers enjoy, and there's a lot being built. And I think this board is an important, I would love to be a member just for the benefit of the town. It's nothing to win a race, or if it wasn't that, I'd be going for more. I would try again in 2 years when that's expired. I wouldn't give up, though, so.
Open it up for questions from council or Mr. Mayor.
Ryan, have you had any previous experience within government organizations?
I have not. Just voluntarily.
In
No
what
job,
roles?
no job in the government.
Volunteering in?
Events around town, the chamber, all the events that go around there, helping the borough with certain events in the streets. I've been very, very interested in the new buildings, the new construction, the new projects, the plans for the future, for the residents, for everyone, and what's to come of it. The zoning, there's so much more ahead of us. It's all coming so fast. It's good. It's for the good. I'd love to be a part of it. I think I'm a quick learner, thinking outside the box. I like the way I think.
Any other questions from council? I just have one follow-up from the question I had earlier. Have you ever reviewed the Phoenixville saldo or have any experience with that?
Not in depth, but I know of it. I'm not a professional at it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Norris.
Thank you, guys.
Ms. Johnson?
I'd like to see the Planning Commission have a little more experience on it than it currently has. I've been to a number of meetings, and it's been very unfortunate that preparation that it needs to be done has not always been done. And I think some of the applicants suffer for that because they don't get enough pertinent questions. I've lived here for 27 years, and I've seen changes in the borough, and it's a good thing. The things that are growing, I would like to make sure that new applicants that come in are consistent with the way that we want the borough to see the borough develop and bring more positive things that can come that are fitting into the neighborhoods and the lifestyle of the borough. Any questions?
Any questions? Ms. Mayo?
Ms. Johnston, how long did you serve on Planning Commission?
I think 11 years.
And you clearly enjoyed it for
Oh
11
yeah,
years.
I found it fascinating. It was very interesting. There were some good plans, and there were some not so good plans. It's quite an education. process.
Any other questions? I'll ask the same question I asked earlier. Have you had an opportunity to review the Phoenixville saldo? Do you know what's in there?
We work with it a lot on the Planning Commission. Yes, very familiar with it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you again, Ms. Johnson. Does council have any action they wish to take at this point?
I'll try again. I'll make a motion to appoint Deb Johnston to planning.
The solicitor advised me that it really comes down to whether or not the mayor at this point is willing to vote, and if not, then we need to schedule the meeting within 10 days of tonight.
Who is the third candidate that was mentioned?
It's a gentleman by the name of Bill Davison. He was before you, I think, in March timeframe and made a presentation during an interview. He was not able to make this particular night when it was announced. And that's why he's not here.
Do you have a resume available?
I have his application. I believe I have a copy of his application.
While the mayor is perusing that, I would like to move on to C, and maybe come back to B, depending on if there's any action. C, it was an addition. We had a recent resume or resignation submitted by Mr. Robert Bolton to the Tree Advisory Commission. So council would need to accept that resignation.
I'll make a motion to accept the resignation.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan.
And I will second that.
Second, motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Dalton to accept the resignation of Robert Bolton from the Tree Advisory Commission. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And I'd just like to thank Mr. Bolton for his service on the Tree Advisory Commission for the last couple months since he's been appointed. I think at this point, in deference of time, we need to continue on with the agenda, and if this comes back to a vote at some point, unless, Mr. Mayor, you're ready to comment.
Again, it's unusual that we have willing members of our community wanting to step up and take part in some of our committees here. We have 3 very qualified people here for the Planning Commission, the applicants, 2 with previous experience. Unfortunately, one of the ones with experience is not here tonight. So I will maintain that in order to be fair to all the candidates, I would need to hear from this member.
Mr. Crack was just advising me that we need to schedule the hearing within 10 days, and then participation in that hearing is going to be subject to people's timeframes, of course. Mr. Dalton?
Is it a special meeting for another interview, or is it because Mr. Davidson wasn't nominated, and I don't believe that's the question being asked to the mayor. It's the two candidates that we've nominated for a decision on one of the 2, not for us to review another third applicant. I just want to be clear. Is that what we're scheduling the new meeting for, so that everybody can come back and do it again, even though we just did it again? Twice? So I'm a little confused as far as that.
I believe that's in council's pleasure, what they wish to do with that special meeting.
There's nothing particularly prescribed on the format of that for the Borough Code, only that if the mayor doesn't take action and chooses to call one, there's a certain time frame for that to happen. But it's pretty vague, the statute.
So, Mr. Bowers?
I think to reiterate Mr. Dalton's point is a decision to schedule a special meeting can't be made on the fact that William Davidson is a third applicant because he has not been nominated. So there is no, council has not put forward any action on Mr. Davidson. Therefore, a decision to schedule a special meeting can't be based upon that. It has to be based upon the two actions which council has taken.
I think that's council's decision to make. I tend to agree with you that we have two applicants here tonight that have made the time to be here, and that I would hope that we would be able to decide between one of the two qualified individuals. So at this point, I think we need to schedule a special meeting solely for the purpose of addressing the two motions that have gone to tie and that the mayor has called for a special meeting. On those two applicants.
If I may, how long has the current seat on the Planning Commission been vacant?
That seat's been vacant since March.
March. Are there pressing matters in front of the Planning Commission at this time?
There's always stuff on every single agenda. We don't ever not have meetings. So there's always the need to have a full body because, as you know, one of the persons is not in the best of health and misses meetings. So it gets perilously close to a lack of form. I think the last two meetings we came close to that, if Mr. Bowers and I recollect correctly.
Okay.
So it is important. I mean, this is an important decision. There's no doubt about it.
Okay. And this would be for an 8-month term to complete that till
No,
March?
the person, if you were to make a vote tonight and one of these two people are chosen, they would serve out the remaining term of the person that left.
20.
So that would be March of 2016. So you're appointing for about 18 months.
Okay. With those considerations taken into effect, the mayor is prepared to take action tonight.
With that said, what is council's pleasure at this point?
I'll make a motion to, should I just do this again?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to appoint Deb Johnson to the Planning Commission.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Ms. Mayo. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's call another roll call.
This time we start with Ms. Dugan.
Yes.
Mr. Ichter.
No.
Mr. Kuznar.
No.
Ms. Mayo.
Yes.
Mr. Prednick. That's a no. Mr. Bowers.
Yes.
Mr. Dalton.
No.
Mr. Kovaleski.
Yes.
Yet again, we have a 4-4 tie. Mr. Mayor, are you prepared to break that tie?
Yes, I will vote in support of Ms. Johnson being appointed to the Planning Commission this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
It is a 5-4 vote in favor of Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you again for both of you for interest. Mr. Norris, if you have interest in other committees and commissions, there are openings. We can coordinate with Mr. Crack afterwards if you have any interest in those. Moving on. Communications and council participation. Mr. Bowers?
And I'm sorry, I'm out of turn, but I did want to acknowledge Mr. Morris and thank him for coming out and being so involved in the community. And I really do encourage you to look deeper into the Chamber of Commerce and seek a leadership role within the Chamber of Commerce, as well as other opportunities within the borough of Phoenixville. I just think you would be a fabulous liaison to, say, like economic development or HARB. you really got great energy and great ambition, so please continue.
Absolutely. Mr. Richter?
Mr. Bowers and I received several communications about the High Street street sweeping that we put into place. I believe it's been 2 or 3 months now that that ordinance has gone into place. The majority of the residents on High Street had some concerns about the times and days of the sweeping. And just for edification, publicly, I believe we've agreed to go with Fridays from 8:30 to 9:30. And I'll ask Mr. Crack to just verify that. But I believe we moved it to Fridays from 8:30 to 9:30.
Correct. In your packets tonight is the draft ordinance for, if you are so inclined to schedule and advertise later, it would have the High Street specifically 8:30 to 9:30 on Fridays only between March and December.
And then the only other comment I have is on a very personal note. My wife and I will be welcoming some new children come January, so just wanted to share, plural. Children? We're going to be having twins, so.
Oh, wow,
Congratulations. That's a yay from Mr. Prednick on the news. Any other council participation or comments? Mr. Kuzner.
Yes, I just wanted to recognize Matt and, I'm sorry, what was your name? Stephanie. And Stephanie, and also Mr. Crack, as I had addressed him with their concerns. They weren't the only residents that had suffered through that, and I'm glad that we are going to make the changes to open up lines of communication better to residents so that that doesn't happen to so many people again. And again, I thank you too for taking your time to come down here. I know you might not have gotten everything you wanted, but it's I want to make sure this doesn't happen so easily again, and that you get better notification next time. So thanks again.
Any other council participation? On that note, I was going to ask Mr. Crack for an update on that for all of council's edification.
Yes, we were typically, we're required whenever we shut down a lot or a street to give 24-hour notification, and historically that's been through the posting of signs in those lots or on the street, up and down. And in this case, because it was a large lot, we kind of did overkill in posting those signs, but again, it was within that 24-hour period of time. Subsequent to that, and based on the information from Mr. Garber, we sat down internally, talking with Mr. Kuznar. Our game plan is at this juncture, instead of 24 hours, we now post 48 hours in advance of any lot closing or street closing. We post it on our website in advance of the operation, at least 48 hours in advance. We also are building the database of, I believe it's emails and maybe even phone numbers at this juncture. Which one or both escapes me at the moment, but of all of those persons that have parking permits, before any car is towed, we will make that email contact and our telephone contact, and try to work within the boundaries of what we have. I think we're doing every single thing that we can short of leaving the car sit there. We obviously we're using paints and we're doing things. We don't want to have the issue of doing something to somebody's car. So I think you've reached out, they've reached out, and I think we've responded in an appropriate manner, and that's the way we'll do business moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Crack.
I just want to say thank you again for the information.
Moving on from council participation to new business. I don't believe we have any at this point, or resolutions. So we'll move right down to item 10, public hearings. What is council's pleasure with item A?
Make a motion to schedule and advertise the ordinance to amend, to repeal Chapter 8 floodplains and replace it with a new Chapter 8 floodplains.
Second.
just for clarification, I think we need a motion to open the public
Public
hearing.
hearing first.
Oh, it is a public,
Yeah.
So are you amenable to that amendment?
Yes, I'd like to amend my motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
And I will second that.
Okay, motion by Mr. Bowers to open the public hearing, second by Mr. Dalton. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. So we'll open the public hearing at 7:38, and I'll turn it over to Solicitor. 7-0, yes.
Thank you very much, President Kovaleski. I'll have marked, just for some housekeeping, as B1, a copy of this public hearing advertisement in the Pottstown Mercury dated July 28, 2014. A copy as B2, a copy of the ordinance itself relating to the changes in floodplains per the Phoenixville Borough Code. The ordinance before you has been worked with staff, specifically our borough engineer, Remington Vernican Beach, my office, Mr. Crack's guidance in putting together essentially new stormwater regulations for Phoenixville Borough. We've been aggressive on this and realizing that Phoenixville is different than a lot of surrounding townships, and taking into account development in Phoenixville and some of the more stringent guidelines put in forward by DEP to craft an ordinance that's been accepted and will help Phoenixville development move forward in a not so onerous manner, but still reflecting stormwater realities and making sure when those 10-year storms that are now 50-year storms happen, that we're protected. I mean, that's right, exactly. Right.
The stormwater's coming in.
Oh, oh my God. All right, I will retract that, and I was, so this is related to the floodplain regulations for FEMA, and we worked on all that as well. I'm sorry I was taken aback, so excuse me, I'll take a bogey on that. So on that note, we're adjusting our floodplain regulations for FEMA. This has been properly advertised in the Pottstown Mercury. These are guidelines put forward every 10 years by the federal government. There would be an opportunity for Mr. Crack to comment briefly, Borough Council, the public, and if Council wanted to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Sure. The FEMA did an inspection on the borough, I think it was in 2012. We're generally pleased across the board with the way our existing ordinance is today, in that it is actually stronger than what were then the FEMA guidelines requiring. We require no one can build above, the finished floor had to be at least 18 inches above floodplain. But subsequent to the last revision of FEMA regulations, they've added additional language and what have you that they recommended that we take a look and redo the regulations. We did that to meet their current regulations, but kept our more stringent in place. This was vetted through FEMA, through the state, through the attorneys, through the engineers, and then, of course, staff. It's been a little over a year in the making, and it is before you and ready to put in place. These are the guidelines that determine whether or not an entity would be entitled to flood insurance along building along the creek or proximity to the river.
Thank you, Mr. Crack. I will open up the public participation portion of the public hearing and invite any members of the public that wish to address this specific issue to come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public participation of the public hearing and open it up to council participation to the extent that council wishes to have any. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion by Ms. Mayo, second by Mr. Bowers to close the public hearing. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. The public hearing is closed at 7:43. What is council's pleasure with regard to the ordinance?
Make the motion to adopt the ordinance amendment to repeal Chapter 8 floodplains and replace with the new Chapter 8 floodplains.
Seconded.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, second by Mr. Dalton. On the question. Seeing no discussion, this has been vetted through, I think it came through policy, Mr. Dalton's policy committee at least twice, if not 3 times, for revision, so it's a good ordinance, at least in my humble opinion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Moving on to item 10B, what is council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to open a public hearing to consider the ordinance for approving collection procedures and adopting interest and scheduling of attorney's fees and charges to be added to the amount collected as part of unpaid municipal claims for delinquent accounts.
Second the motion?
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Bowers. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of opening the public hearing? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0 with Ms. Mayo out of the room.
Thank you very much, President Kovaleski. We'll have marked as B1 a copy of the advertisement of this public hearing in the Pottstown Mercury of July 28, 2014. B2, a copy of the ordinance itself, providing for collection procedures, attorney's fees, and charges. This is required by state law before a municipality moves ahead and sets up an arrangement with collection services. I believe this has been vetted by the awardee contract, staff, and our office in moving forward. And this was in relation to the delinquencies that Phoenixville has been experiencing related to fees.
Thank you. Mr. Crack, any comments on this one? Nope. Okay. With that, I will open up the public participation on this ordinance. If any members of the public wish to comment on it, I invite them up to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close the public participation portion and open up council participation. Any comments from any comments from council? Seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Richter, and I'll give it by a hair to Mr. Dalton with the second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? I'm going to call that 7-0. What is council's pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance approving collection procedures and adopting interest and schedule of attorney fees and charges to be added to the amount collected as part of the unpaid municipal claims for delinquent accounts.
I will second that.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Dalton to approve the ordinance. On the motion. Ms. Dugan.
I just want to mention to everybody that I am totally against this from the beginning with this collection thing, so I will be voting no, and then I don't expect it's going to go anywhere, but just so you know, I will be voting no.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-1. Moving on, item 11, reports of committees, boards, and commissions.
Mr. Kovaleski, I think.
Yes, Mr. Bowers.
Council President, just a follow-up to, now that we have passed this ordinance, is this the last step that was needed for our firm that we've hired to commence their work?
Yes, we have sent notifications to all of the delinquents, advising them that come September 2nd, September 1st being the holiday, that they have this amnesty period between when we notify them and that period of time to pay without penalty. We will turn over, we're working with our data folks at Cassell to provide that list to them. And we've met with Portnoy, and we're ready to go on September 2nd.
Moving on now to item 11A, Planning Commission. Mr. Crack, can you address this issue?
Sure. As some of you will recall, there was a HTC Builders had gotten, for whatever reasons, and there's many, they basically got sideways with a zoning related issue in the movement of their proposed plans for approval. When we became aware of that dilemma, they unfortunately had to stop and literally go through the zoning hearing board process. The Planning Commission, in an effort to try and streamline, has given you a letter saying that barring a zoning hearing board decision against them, that they're recommending the council not oppose the plans and approve those plans. That is certainly up to you whether or not you want to be in advance of the zoning hearing board, who has not provided an answer as to whether they're going to approve those variances or not. That would be next Wednesday that they would meet, meaning that unless you do something tonight in advance of their decision, their plans would be back here before you on September 9th for approval.
See, Mr. Dahl?
I just said, go ahead. What did we do last month? Didn't we do something similar to this? So didn't they go to the zoning hearing board already? Is this something different?
Council, the Planning Commission recommended council not oppose the zoning hearing board process, meaning we did not send a solicitor to defend their desire to get the variances. What the Planning Commission has given you now is that they're okay with the plans. Those plans would normally come before you for signature, for final approval. They're saying they're okay with you doing that. It's up to you to decide whether or not you want to do it in advance of the zoning hearing board formal decision.
Mr. Bowers?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the plans submitted by HTC Builders, conditional upon a ruling which is not contrary to the. Let me try this again.
I think your motion would be that it would be contingent on approval of all of the variances required of the applicant.
Make a motion to approve the plan submitted by HDC Builders, conditional upon the approval of all the variances as represented in the Planning Commission's approval letter.
I'll second that.
Motion by Mr. Bowers, second by Mr. Dalton. On the motion, any comment? I have a comment. I don't like us putting the cart before the horse, so to speak. We don't know what the zoning hearing board is going to do. We're basically almost subverting the zoning hearing board, I feel, by approving this tonight. We're saying that to me, it's almost like sending a message that they better approve it. So I don't like that. I don't think that's appropriate for council, a message for council to send. So I'm going to be voting no on this based upon that. Ms. Mayo?
I totally understand what you're saying. It's my understanding that the zoning hearing board, even if we approve the plan and zoning hearing board does not, it's still what they say in the end.
It is.
So they could still not approve it and it wouldn't go through. So I think that we've dealt with this particular one long enough. Last month we had an issue over it, and I'm okay with the plan too, so I'll be voting for it.
Mr. Bowers?
Council President, I do as well completely understand your position and don't disagree at all. I wish that we could come at this particular application from a whole different perspective, a whole different way, but it's just gone on so long. And unfortunately, if we don't act on this, that it would be a 2 to 3 month delay until they could potentially get an approval. And I think it was, the Planning Commission was just acting in that interest to try and put forward their approval so that it didn't further have economic impact upon the applicant. But I do completely understand your position, and I am concerned that this does as well send such a message to the zoning hearing board. And I suppose in that light, I would, they need, would just remind them they need to be totally independent of any action we've taken. The issue before them is separate and distinct from our action.
Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 7-1. Regional planning?
No action.
Harm?
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the sign request for 323 Bridge Street as recommended by the Harb Action memo of August 5th, 2014.
Seeing no second.
I'll second that.
Oh, thank you. Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Mr. Bowers. Council discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-1 with Mr. Perendick being the nay. Police and Personnel Committee?
Consider authorizing staff to prepare and advertise a bid proposal for the perimeter fence for the police department.
I'll take that as a motion. Do we have a second? Motion by Mr. Kuznar, second by Ms. Mayo. On the question.
I have something to mention. This is one of those things that, we're not required after we get this to do this at all because this hasn't even seen the light of finance at all, so we have no idea how this is going to fit into a really tight budget this year. So I'm not entirely sure that there's even any reason to do it just yet, since we don't even know if we're going to be able to afford it. So I am not voting for this.
Mr. Richter?
My only comment on this item is we've spent a lot of time and money and effort to make this general area look very nice. So if we're going to do this, I would prefer that it not be a chain link fence, something aluminum or wrought iron. I know there's probably going to be an additional cost, but to do chain link, I think would definitely degrade the look that we've helped to establish here.
Oh, and just one more question, actually. Just a question for Mr. Crack. This was, you originally said it was about $85,000, what we were talking about here?
Yes, ma'am. For the 8-foot chain link fence, it was about $85,000. The original plans did, consistent with the borough look, have a minor height of brickwork with wrought iron associated with it. Obviously, way more expensive, but just traditional chain link fence with electronic gates. The contractor, when they bid, had it at $85,000.
And one other question. I just wanted to know from the meeting, we were talking about what the officers were concerned about, things being left on their vehicles. And nobody seemed to know exactly what these things were. Do we have any idea what those items were that were being left on their vehicles?
Yeah, the main concern is the safety. Is the safety of prisoners that are being brought in and out of the back of the station, because our district court, we're physically attached to district court, so it's not only Phoenixville prisoners that may be coming and going, it's all the regional police departments. So if there is, if we have somebody, and we had this at the other building, we have a prisoner, and you see this all the time, somebody commits a particularly heinous crime, the police officers they're having to put helmets and vests on these people to keep the irate family and citizenry away from them, and there's no physical barrier to the back here at all. So we're concerned about the safety of prisoners that there may be retribution against from family members or the citizenry. We're concerned about ourselves, the police officer walking out into an ambush. We're concerned about the press potentially being able to set up in our parking lot and being able to film through the windows or things things that are happening back there. There's simply no security back there. We have, but the first...
Did we have security at the old Borough Hall?
No, no. And it was a concern there as well, that we had to deal with. And where we're at right now, it continues to be a concern. With the farmers market that we have here on Saturdays and with First Fridays, we have people actually parking under our canopy where the police cars park. They park across the back, and we're having to shoo the people out. In fact, there was a kid riding his bike through there, almost got hit by a police car today. He rode right through the two signs that said no trespassing, and his police officers were pulling out to attend to a fairly serious crash he almost got ran into. There's nothing back there to physically protect anybody that's back there. We need to protect ourselves. Now, the officers' cars, the officers parking a lot over here. The cars that are parked down here, if there's room, some officers can park their cars there. We did have a guy who had a mental health issue who was leaving things around the station, including inside the call box out front, which there was suspicion that it was a bomb, which it was not. He was leaving food items, he was leaving cash, he was leaving trash, and he was setting it on the pillars, and setting it on the pillars in the back underneath our canopy. And it's just something that, 3 o'clock in the morning, you shouldn't be walking out the door and into citizens, and citizens should not be subject to the danger of police officers coming and going in and out of the back. They just shouldn't have access to it, and the signs apparently aren't working.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, as Ms. Dugan says, this is just step one for council to authorize our manager to look into a bid package to provide this safety mechanism for our officers. And if it is approved, Gene, if you could follow Councilman Ichter's recommendation, some type of decorative fencing along, whatever is available. But I want to take the opportunity to mention, if you looked in the news just yesterday, somebody in Gloucester, New Jersey, I believe it was, shot at a police station several times. Now, granted, a fence isn't going to stop bullets, but it will provide that additional level of safety for our officers, for all the reasons that the chief has stated with the activity going on back there. So I would request that council supports step one in this endeavor. Thank you.
Mr. Richter?
I would just like to encourage the chief and the mayor. I believe council stepped up in a big way to get the funds necessary for the scales that your officers are currently using. And several people have made note that they are being seemingly heavily used and perhaps collecting a good amount of funds. It'd be interesting to see if those sort of funds would provide, for this type of project. That'd be something that I would absolutely say I have an appetite for. If you were to come back to us and even say it covered half the cost, just another way of looking at it, I think that would be helpful.
In addition to the cost of buying scales?
Correct.
Ms. Mapp?
I'm not on budget committee for a very good reason, but if the manager could answer if we have any funds left over from building of this building. I know that I remember that we initially, a fence, I think, was initially in the construction, but then we took it out. So I just wanted to see if there was any funds left over, or if the police department, I know the police department has had a couple of grants recently. Is there any way they could put any of that money towards the fence?
Well, in answer to the first question, I don't have off the top of my head how much is remaining, although there is funds remaining. We'd have to get that answer to you. I don't have that available tonight. With regard to grants, I know the chief knows that Mr. Marshall and myself, Sergeant Marshall and myself, from different purchasers have been looking for grants. Have tried several times, and they don't reach that level. The security fence doesn't work that so far. The one area that I was hoping was going to make itself available was under Homeland Security. I don't know when the next cycle is, but that's probably the last bastion of grant opportunities that would have any promise. As it relates to, sorry, you had another question. The reason it was out, the reason it came out is we had, as you are aware, we had a finite dollar amount that we had available to build this building based on the bond that was taken. And to get there, we had to do what was commonly referred to as value engineering, and several things came out, and that was a big ticket item that at the time, the chief and I talked about it a lot. We just felt, okay, if it's not that it's not needed, it just, maybe we can find another bucket of funds somewhere through a grant. Unfortunately, that hasn't materialized. So one of two things, I've offered to go ahead and just put the bid out. I understand reasons why you may or may not want to do that, but the bid doesn't cost anything except, a little bit of advertising and staff time. It would certainly give you a real idea of what the numbers are. Those numbers that we had were 2011, 2012 numbers, based on Mr. Richter's thought process. We would look at chain link fence as well as a more ornate, consistent with the design of the building, and get you numbers and then see where it goes.
And Ms. Mayor, to address the question, your last question, when the grants, I guess you call them grants, donations, the last couple that we have gotten were specifically earmarked for certain pieces of equipment. For instance, when the VFW was here, they came up with a certain number to outfit us with certain pieces of equipment. So we haven't really gotten a grant or a donation to just here's 10,000, do whatever you want to do. It's here, buy new tasers, here, buy new holsters, here, buy new bikes, that type of thing. So it's usually, or camera systems for the car. Probably the last 4 or 5 that we've gotten where people came here and delivered checks, this is specifically earmarked to buy us something, not the fences. And to Ms. Dugan's comment, any fines that we generate, they don't come to the police department. They go into the general fund, so I don't see them. If my guys write $30,000 worth of fines, Steve doesn't hand me a check for 30 grand and say, here you go, chief, do something with it. I never see it. So it would then go, I guess, back to finance or into the general fund to do with as you see fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comment? Mr. Bowers?
I think a lot based on what the discussion tonight, just so I can get it clear in my mind as well. What we would be recommending staff to do is put together a request for proposal, not a request for quotation. So the idea is we're not going to go forward with a definition of what type of fence we want, but rather we would invite firms to come out, take a look at the building, take a look at the setting, and give us options. Okay.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-1 with Ms. Dugan opposing. Parks and Rec.
All right. Item number 1. We'd like to consider awarding a contract to Sportsline in the amount of $11,180 for the repair and resurfacing of the tennis court on High Street. That passed committee 4-0. Yeah, sorry. That's the motion.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Ms. Dugan. On the question. Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the temporary community event for the Phoenixville Zombie Run to be held Saturday, November 1st.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Ms. Dugan. On the question. Any comment? Seeing none. Oh, Mr. Bowers, maybe?
I'll jump in his grave.
Mr.
I would just like to say that I'll be voting for this in the hopes that it is, how can I say this, a little bit better more well put together than it was last year, to see this thing be a success, to move forward, to be an annual thing.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Make a motion to approve the temporary community event for Bark for Life on Sunday, October 5th. This was approved in committee 3-0.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Ms. Dugan. On the question, any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion to approve the temporary community event for Pumpkin Fest, Saturday, October 18th, approved in committee 3-0.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Dalton. On the motion, seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Make a motion to approve the temporary community event for a whole lot of Lulu Vintage Flea Market on Saturday, October 11th, approved in committee 3-0.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Dalton. On the question, Mr. Bowers.
The security deposit has been struck from this application.
The security deposit has been struck from this application? Why?
This event has already been approved for the Bridge Street and Main Street parking lot, and they decided that their event was getting larger due to the number of vendors and what have you. So this piece of the application is merely to expand into Main Street. So there wouldn't be an additional fee in this case. It's just an expansion of what turned out to be a bigger event than what they were thinking.
Okay.
You previously approved it, I believe, in June.
Then the increase in fees for service don't reflect that?
We already had, I believe we had barricades in and around for the parking lot itself. I'll check back on the barricades piece of it, but that would probably be the only piece necessary. They've already bought the parking lot, and it's for that day. So the only other thing that would possibly be would be the barricades at Church and Prospect and Main Street, Bridge Street. So we're talking 2, 4, 6, 8 barricades.
Mr. Crack, the June application is for $442 for Public Works. It doesn't have a breakout on the barricades.
The application that we had before us tonight has $70 listed under barricades.
Okay. Then you rest my case. It's confusing.
Yep.
Should have been an amended application, not a second application.
Fair enough.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-1 with Mr. Perednik opposing.
Lastly, on the temporary community events, make a motion to approve the basketball tournament by Grimes AMEC at Morris Street Park on Saturday, September 13th, approved in committee 4-0.
Second motion?
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Bowers. On the question, seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Lastly is just some commentary I'd like to add from the Parks and Rec Committee Chair perspective. I've had some issues where the Beautification Advisory Committee and the Rec Board have been kind of what I'd say commingling events that happen in the park, policies that happen in our Parks and Rec. And I really, really, really would push council to consider rolling all three of these entities into a combined organization, whether it stays into Parks and Rec or into some other type of organization. I think we'd be better off pooling all the resources of those various areas into one. I don't see it as a slight on any certain group. I just think we're wasting a lot of staff time, and we're wasting a lot of time in some of the committees when we could be all moving forward as one. There's a couple things that I'm well aware of that I can discuss in greater detail separately, but it would just Mr. President, I'd appreciate it if you would give that some consideration and maybe figure out a way that we can make that work.
Thank you, Mr. Richter. I think that's definitely something worth considering, and I think it's something that staff has to consider, and then would be at council's pleasure. But, thank you. Ms. Mayo?
Are you talking about Parks, Rec, and Beautification?
Parks and Rec Board, and BAC. There's been a lot of overlap, murals that are happening in parks, structures that BAC is pushing in certain parks, and why that's not going through Parks and Rec, I'm not sure, and they're asking questions and time of staff. We even had the item tonight that actually came from Rec Board, the mini disc golf item. Rec Board has actually already made a request to staff to put.
Parks and Rec, right?
No, that was out of Rec Board. Rec Board has asked, Rec.
That disc thing did not go through
Rec Board came up with the idea for
Rec Board.
the.
It didn't actually go through Rec Board.
Okay, but they made the request without going through Parks and Rec to put it in the 2015 budget, because I confirmed that with Melissa Gibbons.
Finance decides what's going on.
Agreed, but we are taking up Melissa's time with multiple organizations rather than just focusing it in one area. That's my point.
So there's, I hate to sound like an idiot, but there's a Rec Board and a Parks and Rec?
Yes.
Okay, I can see that those two should probably be combined. But I do believe that beautification is something completely different, that they should work with each other, but beautification has its own rules and guidelines and its own committee members that they've appointed for a certain point, time period and things like that. So, I think that if beautification and Parks and Rec or Rec Board and whatever want to get together and talk shop, that's fine, but I don't think that beautification should be combined with the other two. Only because I was the initial borough council representative to beautification, and it's just two polar opposite things that they're doing, I believe.
I'm going to ask for Mr. Crack for some commentary on this.
Hey, just for clarification, we'll start with Recreation Committee. That is a committee of council. The appointments are made by President of Council as to who sits on those committees, and generally pushes park programs and now temporary community events and what have you through council for the decision-making process. The Recreation Board is by ordinance, and it has its own duties and responsibilities. Those members were appointed by council. They have terms that they are applied that are applied to. So, as an ordinance, what you can make, you can also take away. There is very much, in my years of experience here, a cross purposes of the same types of information, but that's up to council to decide if those two could be melded together. Beautification started as an adjunct out of the council's Economic Development Committee. It got legs about 18 months ago or so. Started out as an ad hoc committee unto itself, and then very quickly, within about a 9-month period of time, it also by ordinance became its own commission. As again, what you could make, you can also take away. My experience is it does eat up staff time. BAC wants a budget which is going to present itself in finance. They've got some ideas as to what they want. There are appointed persons to those committees. Ms. Dugan is to the Recreation Board. I believe Mr. Prednick is to the BAC. Independently working like that, how does that information get conveyed to you for the ultimate decision-making process. I don't think, in my experience, that the rec board or BAC thus far has done very well at bubbling things up and through Borough Council. Your Recreation Committee and your Economic Development Committee have done that. So you've really got to decide, and maybe it's appropriate that we throw our administrative knowledge into some sort of recommendation, but ultimately it's your recommendation as to what should stay and what should go. I guess they all have purposes, but I could see a lot of duplication.
I think for purposes of tonight, I think this is something that would appropriately be in Mr. Dalton's policy committee. Everything ends up in either policy or finance, I swear. I was the policy chair for 2 years, so I understand Mr. Kirkner, my predecessor, used to always throw me all these hard questions. But I think it would be appropriate, since the BAC came out of policy, to have policy look at a recommendation if they wanted to make a recommendation to council as to the combining or adjusting of these various boards and commissions, and see what that recommendation would be. So I'll ask Mr. Crack to add that to the policy agenda.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Finance.
All right, I'm going to bundle all of these, nothing too out of the ordinary. So I'll make a motion to approve the 2014 prepaids dated 6/8/2014 to 7/5/2014 in the amount of $655,996.55, and the approval of the 2014 prepaids ACH dated 6/30/2014 in the amount of $3,765.86. The budget increase 2014-14 for $10,000 to wastewater refunds and reimbursements, and $10,000 to wastewater engineering fees for the sewer tapping study. The budget increase 2014-15 for $3,020 from the J.C.'s donation and $12,000 from the VFW donation to police equipment for purchase of cameras for Car9 and Taser project and rifle project. Also, the budget increase 2014-17 for $1,146.32 from refund and reimbursements to police protection vehicle expenses for the damages to Car 11. And finally, the budget increase 2014-18 for $6,500 from fund balance to zoning engineering fees for the engineering fees relating to the ordinance amendment to ordain Buttonwood Street.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Ms. Mayo. That was quite a mouthful, and for those scoring at home, I believe we're bundling C1 through 6. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Bowers?
Oh, I do wish we had left 6 separate.
I wish I could line item my vote and exclude 6, but it's bundled. I'm
Sorry, you didn't tell me before.
real keen on 6.
Any other discussion?
Well, if we're open in discussion, is there questions you have about it, or things you'd like to bring to light to council that we might not have noticed or be aware of?
I think at this point in time, I just feel it's an unnecessary expense of $6,500. Life has gone on there for a while. I'm just not sure I'm ready to spend those kind of dollars to resolve what may or may not be really a problem at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Any other comment? Mr. Richter?
I will be voting no on that mass approval for that particular reason. When I saw that on the agenda, I was not keen on that particular item, so.
Any other comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? 1. All right, so motion fails. 3.
All right, I am not rereading this. I will make another motion, including 1 through 5 only.
Second.
Let's wrap up the last vote so we have it right for the minutes. The yeses, which were 3, were myself, Ms. Dugan, and Mr. Perednik, I believe. Everyone else was no. That being said, now that we've got the minutes straight, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Ms. Mayo? Mr. Kuznar, sorry. On items C1 through 5. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
And now I'll be making the motion that I can kind of see where this is going for the budget increase 2014-18, as I previously read.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Ms. Mayo this time. On the question, seeing no comment, my only comment is that this came forward so that we can clean up something on the books, which is why I wanted to move it forward. I understand everyone's position that it is $6,500 to do that, but that being said, any other comment? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion fails 3-5 again with the same vote. Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Dugan? Infrastructure.
No actions coming out of infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Economic Development?
No action.
Thank you, Ms. Mayo. Policy?
Let's see. I would like to make a motion to consider scheduling and advertising a public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment to repeal Chapter 23, which is stormwater management, and replace with a new Chapter 23, which is also stormwater management, as recommended in committee 3-0.
Motion by Mr. Dalton, second by Ms. Mayo. On the motion, it would be to schedule and advertise at the September 8th meeting of council.
Yes.
Yes. September 9th, sorry. Any other comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
All right. Secondly, I'd like to make another motion to consider an ordinance amendment to Chapter 15, which is Motor Vehicles and Traffic Part 4, in the General Parking Regulations, Section 15-406, handicap parking zones in Section 15-411, parking prohibited on portions of certain highways during street sweeping hours from March 1st to December 31st, as recommended in Committee 3-0 as well.
Motion by Mr. Dalton, second by Ms. Mayo. On the question, Mr. Bowers.
Just a reminder to the residents of High Street that the revisions to the street sweeping schedule is represented in this ordinance.
That's correct, and until we get this perfected, just a reminder, we're not putting signs up, we're not engaging in what was previously approved. Assuming this were to pass in September, by the time we get the signs ordered, the PA1 calls to locate the signs, what have you, you're probably not going to see actual street sweeping operations until the October timeframe.
And just for clarification, this is to schedule and advertise a public hearing in September, not for approval of the ordinance. You did, but that's what was written. Any other comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Lastly, is this also a... Okay. I'd like to make a motion to schedule and advertise to a public hearing to consider an ordinance amendment to Chapter 22, Subdivision and Land Development, Part 3, Subdivision Control, Enforcement, and Impact Statements, Section 22-305, Impact Statements, as recommended in committee.
Thank you.
A second?
Motion by Mr. Dalton, second by Mr. Bowers. On the motion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Mr. Dalton. With that, I'll open up the second round of public participation and invite any members of the public who wish to participate. Please remember to sign in identify whether you're a borough resident, and please keep comments to 5 minutes.
My name is Tish Jones, and I am a resident of Phoenixville. I am asking if a traffic study has been done yet on Route 23 across from the Kelly Chevrolet and the senior housing. It's very difficult to cross that street if you're walking, and I just want to know if there's an interest in putting a light up, and if there's money for that light to go up. I thought that at one time that I had heard that there is money available for that light to be placed there for safety reasons, and I'm definitely concerned because I don't see anything happening there. And when you come out of the street, in order for you to go either left or right, it takes you a very, very long time because nobody stops to let you pass. So I'm asking about that. That's one thing. The other thing is there is a swimming area on 23 that used to be very active, and I know that it's up for sale, and I was wondering if Phoenixville Borough might be interested in evaluating and thinking, and to think whether it could be of some value to us here in Phoenixville Borough. It's straight on 23. It's not in the borough, but it is on 23, and it used to be very active.
On 724?
What's that? Is that 724 yet?
On Route 724.
Okay, 724. As far as I'm concerned, everything is 23 when I'm on that road, but 724. But I don't know if anyone's ever bothered to look at it or would think that it would be any value for the camps here in the summertime. I know we have the Y, but the Y is very, very busy. And I knew at one time that some of the camps did use that place to take their kids swimming. Now I see some of the camps up in Spring City, and that's where they're going. I was thinking that we could probably evaluate that and rebuild it, and I think it could probably bring money into Phoenixville and the surrounding areas. But I just think it's something that we should at least look at before we say no to it, because I know it's old now and there's a lot of work that has to be done, but I feel that very confident that there's a lot of people in Phoenixville who would be interested in helping out and putting that place back together. I think it could be helpful to Phoenixville, and I think we could make money. So.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I've got large fingers, I apologize. Any other public participation? Seeing none, I'll close the second round of public participation for the evening. And since we don't have council participation, I believe that there is a very small escrow of money held for that traffic light or potential traffic light, to Ms. Jones' comments, but it's nowhere near the cost of installing that traffic light.
That's correct. We have an escrow of about $30,000 for a portion of the development that would have gone there. We still have that in escrow, but a traffic signal at that location on average is about $225,000 because it's got to be tied into the closed loop system. So there's your numbers.
Thank you, Mr. Crack. And with regard to the property in 724, I guess I'll refer that to the Parks and Rec Committee for any type of discussion. Thank you. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just very briefly want to touch on a few events of last month. On Wednesday, July 16th, I attended the 2014 Pennsylvania Police Chiefs Banquet with Chief Mossman, Lieutenant Sostrom, and Sergeant Marshall. The Phoenixville Police Department was formally recognized, and we received our accreditation certificate. We're prepared to have a formal ceremony for council at September's meeting. Excuse me. On Saturday, July 19th, attended the Hispanic Latino Heritage Day at Reeves Park. A big thank you to Nina Guzman of Valencias de Phoenixville and her organization, and Mr. Edwin Soto, who acted as the MC for the affair. Many vendors and organizations participated, including the Phoenixville Fire Department. Assistant Chief Brian Gallagher and members of Station 65 demonstrated fire safety using the county's fire safety trailer, which provides an interactive learning experience. Information on the free smoke detector giveaway program was also provided. And on Tuesday, August 5th, Officers Kyle Place and Brad Dolbury attended the National Night Out. That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Manager's report.
Mr. President, I just have two items at this point in time. One is we put out the 2014 proposals for street paving. Unfortunately, we only received 2 bids in, and those bids are significantly apart from each other. It's our recommendation to reject all bids, recommendation for council to reject all bids, and then we will go back and revise the bid package and rebid the project, try to get more bidders in on this. The numbers are just too far apart.
Thank you, Mr. Crack. Mr. Richter?
Mr. Crack. The numbers that are reflected in this memo for street paving, I know infrastructure had a list of the 2014 road paving projects with a total for the high priority, medium priority, and low priority. Those bid numbers reflect what on that list?
This is only the machinery and personnel used. This is not the materials themselves. The materials themselves are going to be in the area of about 300,000.
So
our project, we estimated, was going to be 400,000.
For the high priority items?
Yes.
And what about the bid, what about the bid package are you planning on changing the next time around that would potentially get more bidders?
We think because we were trying to get this project done before school, so we believe there's a lot of overtime that was plugged into this equation. Since we're not going to be pushed up against the school schedule, we're very confident we're going to get better bids.
Will these be PennDOT approved bidders?
That's a good question. We think that's also one of the reasons why we only got the 2. There's some words in there, as in type and subcontractor, that we're going to revise and see where it goes.
What is council's pleasure with regard to the bids?
I'll make a motion to reject all the bids regarding the 2014 road paving project as recommended by the borough manager.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dugan, second by Ms. Mayo. On the question. Mr. Richter.
I guess I'm just a little concerned that we're going to get a quality bid by making our bid package less stringent. And I just want to make sure that the right protections for the borough are in a less stringent bid package, because we do have some roads, I don't know, I'm sure many of you have been on 23. They didn't do the best paving job on that road when they ripped up the water mains. And I'm just a little concerned that by removing or changing some of the stringent wording, we'll end up with that and a lot of unhappy people.
Just so that you're aware, one of the things that we will be adding into our package is our ability to do core samples. So we'll be able to test the thicknesses of the materials and stuff. So Mr. Watson and I have talked about what we want to see in that package to make sure that we're protected.
Any other comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor to reject the bids? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0.
Also in your packet, you would have gotten the 2014 status report. Yet, once again, I think this is 5 years running, in the top 10 referring sites for all of the classic towns. Phoenixville is again #1. It's also in the top site pages. It's in the top 5. We're getting our money's worth as far as advertising goes, as it relates to this particular program. And based on this, I'll be, as I have in the past, I'll be adding that into the to the budget, and let's see where it goes.
Thank you, Mr. Crack. Co-directors, Public Works, Fire Chiefs, Finance Director. Oh, Mr. Bowers.
Council President, a question for either the manager or the Public Works Director. The Township Line Road from about the Gridiron to 23, there has been some milling and resurfacing going on that road. Is that entirely an Ace Pikeland project?
It is. We typically have split the road when it comes to those kinds of things, but Mr. Watson and I turned the corner one day and had that, look at this. So we thank them for that.
The other reports are in our packet. If anyone has questions, we can, otherwise we'll move on. Fire Department liaison? Nothing. Executive session, we do have matters to talk about related to personnel litigation and real estate. So we'll need a motion to go into executive session. And we do expect to come back to take action, so I ask our parties that be to stay. But I will take a motion to move into executive session. Motion by Mr. Richter. Second by Mr. Bowers. I don't believe we need a vote on that. Bring council back into session from executive session at 9:35. Do I need a motion to come back in? I don't believe so. No. Mr. Richter?
I'd like to make a motion to accept an early retirement package for a borough employee.
Motion by Mr. Richter, second by Mr. Perednik. On the question, seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. 7-0, I'm sorry.
Consider approving the hire for the 28th officer, Andrew Brown, and following a psych evaluation and physical.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Kuznar, second by Mr. Perednik. On the discussion, I'll just add that he was vetted through the normal processes of both the civil service and interviews by the chief and the mayor, and he comes highly recommended to council by both the mayor and the chief. I don't think I overstate that. So, with that said, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Prednick. Any other? I'll take a motion to adjourn, seeing no other action. Thank you very much.